Welcome to Dream Tales Sleep Stories. Tonight's reading is Luna's Journey Home. Settle into your bed or sofa and let your shoulders, jaw, and eyelids grow heavy. Inhale slowly, 1, 2, 3, and sigh the air away, allowing the day to fade into quiet dark. With every soft inhale, you invite fresh English phrases. With every gentle exhale, stray thoughts drift farther off. Behind my voice flows a gentle 528 Hz melody, renowned for guiding the mind toward deep relaxation. Keep your eyes closed or follow the captions, whichever feels right. Simply receive the rhythm and resonance of the language. Deep in rest, tonight's phrases will take root like seeds, ready to bloom into stronger English skills with the morning light. When you feel settled, hold that unhurried breath and allow yourself to drift into the tale. Luna's journey home begins now, and when the story's final line has faded, the music will linger a little longer, carrying you gently deeper into sleep. Luna's Journey Home. Luna was a 5-year-old gray cat with bright green eyes and a curious spirit that often got her into trouble. She lived with her beloved owner, Emily, in a quiet suburban house surrounded by a beautiful garden filled with colorful flowers and tall oak trees. Every morning, Luna would sit by the large window in the living room, watching the world wake up as the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. Emily worked from home as a freelance graphic designer, which meant Luna always had company during the day. The two had developed a special routine. Emily would take breaks from her computer to play with Luna using a feather toy, and Luna would curl up on Emily's lap while she worked, purring contentedly as her owner's fingers moved across the keyboard. One particularly beautiful spring morning, Emily decided to let Luna explore the garden while she tended to her vegetable patch. "Stay close to the house, Luna," Emily called out as she opened the back door. "I don't want you wandering too far today." Luna meowed in response, as if she understood perfectly, and stepped delicately onto the soft grass, feeling the cool morning dew between her toes. The garden was alive with the sounds and scents of spring. Bees buzzed lazily from flower to flower, collecting nectar from the bright tulips and daffodils that Emily had planted the previous autumn. Luna loved to watch the busy insects, occasionally batting playfully at them with her paws, though she was always careful not to hurt them. As Luna explored the familiar territory of her garden, something caught her attention near the old wooden fence that separated their property from the neighboring woods. A butterfly, unlike any she had ever seen before, was dancing among the roses. Its wings were a brilliant shade of blue, with silver edges that sparkled in the sunlight like tiny mirrors. Luna had seen many butterflies before, but none quite as beautiful as this one. Fascinated by the creature's graceful movements, Luna began to follow it as it fluttered from rose to rose. The butterfly seemed to be leading her somewhere, always staying just out of reach, but never flying so far that Luna couldn't follow. Without realizing it, Luna found herself moving closer and closer to the fence. Then, through a small gap between the wooden boards that she had never noticed before, The butterfly continued its dance on the other side of the fence, leading Luna deeper into the woods. The trees grew taller and thicker, blocking out more and more of the morning sunlight, until Luna found herself walking through a mysterious green twilight. The familiar sounds of her neighborhood, the distant hum of traffic, the voices of children playing in nearby yards, gradually faded away, replaced by the rustling of leaves and the occasional bird call. Luna followed the butterfly for what felt like hours, though it was probably only 30 minutes. The magical creature led her through a maze of trees, over fallen logs, and around large boulders covered in soft, green moss. Luna was so enchanted by the butterfly's beauty that she didn't pay attention to the path they were taking or try to remember the way back home. Suddenly, the butterfly disappeared. One moment it was there, dancing just ahead of Luna among the branches of a large pine tree, and the next moment it was gone, as if it had simply vanished into thin air. Luna looked around frantically, hoping to catch another glimpse of the beautiful creature, but there was nothing, just trees, shadows, and the growing realization that she was completely lost. For the first time since beginning her adventure, Luna stopped and really looked at her surroundings. Nothing looked familiar. The trees here were different from the ones near her home, taller, older, and more densely packed together. The ground was covered with a thick layer of fallen leaves that rustled under her paws, and there were no paths or signs of human presence anywhere. Luna's heart began to race as panic set in. She tried to retrace her steps, but every direction looked the same. The woods seemed to stretch endlessly in all directions, with no sign of the fence or her garden anywhere. She called out, hoping Emily might hear her, but her small voice was swallowed by the vast silence of the forest. As the reality of her situation sank in, Luna sat down on a soft patch of moss and tried to think clearly. Emily had always told her that she was a smart cat, and now she needed to prove it. Getting upset wouldn't help her find her way home. She needed to stay calm and figure out what to do next. Luna decided to explore her immediate surroundings more carefully, hoping to find some clue that might point her in the right direction. As she walked through the undergrowth, she noticed that the forest was full of life. Squirrels chattered in the trees above her head, and she could hear the distant sound of running water, which meant there must be a stream nearby. After walking for about 10 minutes, Luna came upon a small clearing where an ancient oak tree stood like a giant umbrella, its massive branches spreading wide to create a natural shelter. Lying in the shade beneath the tree was the oldest cat Luna had ever seen. His fur was a mixture of gray and white, with patches of brown that spoke of many years spent outdoors. One of his ears was torn, and he had a long scar across his left cheek, but his eyes were kind and wise. The old cat looked up as Luna approached, studying her with interest. "Well, well," he said in a gravelly voice that sounded like autumn leaves rustling in the wind. "What have we here? A house cat, by the look of you, and a long way from home, if I'm not mistaken." Luna felt a mixture of relief and nervousness. She was glad to find another cat, but this one looked so different from herself. Rough and weathered, clearly used to living in the wild. "My name is Luna," she said politely, remembering the manners Emily had taught her. "I was following a butterfly and got lost. Do you know the way back to the suburban houses?" The old cat chuckled, a sound like pebbles rolling down a hill. "Name's Oscar," he replied. "Been living in these woods for more years than I care to count." "The suburban houses, you say? That's quite a journey from here, little one. You've wandered deeper into the forest than you realize." Luna's heart sank. "How deep?" she asked, afraid to hear the answer. Oscar stretched slowly, his joints creaking with age. "Deep enough that it'll take you the better part of a day to get back, assuming you know which direction to go." He paused, studying Luna's worried expression. "But don't despair just yet. These woods have their own rules, and if you're smart and brave, you can make it home safely." Over the next hour, Oscar taught Luna essential survival skills that she had never needed in her comfortable home. He showed her how to find fresh water by listening for the sound of streams and checking for signs of other animals' tracks leading to water sources. He explained how to identify safe places to rest and which areas to avoid, particularly during nighttime when larger predators might be hunting. "The most important thing," Oscar said seriously, "is to trust your instincts. You house cats are more capable than you think. Your ancestors were all wild creatures once. That knowledge is still inside you, buried under all that comfortable living. When you need it, it'll come." As if to test this theory, they suddenly heard a rustling in the bushes nearby. Oscar's ears immediately flattened against his head, and he crouched low to the ground. "Fox," he whispered to Luna. "Young one, by the sound of it, but still dangerous for a cat your size. Do exactly what I do." A red fox emerged from the undergrowth, its bright eyes scanning the clearing. It was indeed young, probably not much older than Luna herself, but its teeth looked sharp, and its movements were quick and confident. The fox spotted the two cats immediately and began to approach, clearly considering them potential prey. Oscar didn't run, which surprised Luna. Instead, he made himself look larger by arching his back and fluffing out his fur. He began to hiss softly, a sound that seemed to fill the entire clearing. Luna tried to copy him, though her hiss sounded much smaller and less intimidating. "Look bigger than you are," Oscar murmured without taking his eyes off the fox. "Move slowly toward that fallen log behind us. If I say run, you climb that log and get into the oak tree as fast as you can." The fox circled them slowly, trying to decide if the two cats would be worth the effort. Oscar continued his intimidating display, occasionally taking a step forward instead of backward, which seemed to confuse the young predator. After several tense minutes, the fox apparently decided that these particular cats looked like they might fight back too hard to be easy prey, and it trotted away into the deeper forest. Luna's legs were shaking as the danger passed. "How did you know it would leave?" she asked. "Experience," Oscar replied simply. "Most predators are looking for easy meals. If you show them you're not going to be easy, they'll often look elsewhere." But remember, that was a young fox who wasn't very confident. An older, hungrier one might not have been so easily discouraged. As the afternoon wore on, Oscar continued Luna's education in forest survival. He taught her to read the position of the sun to determine direction, explaining that the suburban houses lay to the east of the forest. He showed her which plants were safe to eat if she became hungry, and which ones to avoid completely. Now, Oscar said finally, you have a choice to make. You can stay here tonight, where it's relatively safe, and start your journey home tomorrow morning, when you can see clearly. Or you can try to make it out of the forest before dark. Both options have risks. Luna considered carefully. The idea of spending the night in the wild frightened her. But she also knew that Emily would be worried sick by now. I want to try to get home today, she decided. Emily will be looking for me, and the longer I'm gone, the more scared she'll be. Oscar nodded approvingly. Loyalty to your family is important. Very well, but promise me you'll be smart about it. If you find yourself still in the forest when the sun starts to set, find a safe place to wait until morning. It's better to spend one night outdoors than to get more lost trying to travel in the dark. Luna promised, and Oscar pointed her in the direction she should travel. Follow that stream, he said, indicating a small brook that babbled cheerfully through the clearing. It flows east toward the edge of the forest. Eventually, it will lead you to civilization. Before they parted ways, Oscar gave Luna one final piece of advice. Remember, little one, being lost isn't the same as being helpless. You have intelligence, courage, and good instincts. Trust yourself, and you'll find your way home. Luna thanked Oscar warmly and set off along the stream, feeling more confident than she had since becoming lost. The old cat's teachings had awakened something inside her, a sense of her own capabilities that she had never known existed. As she walked, she practiced the skills Oscar had taught her, reading the forest signs and staying alert for both dangers and opportunities. The stream led Luna through parts of the forest that were different from where she had met Oscar. Here, the trees were somewhat smaller and more spaced out, allowing more sunlight to filter through the canopy. Wildflowers grew along the banks of the stream, and Luna could see fish darting through the clear water. After following the stream for about an hour, Luna began to hear new sounds in the distance, sounds that didn't belong to the forest. There was a rumbling noise that she gradually recognized as traffic, and occasionally she could hear voices and the barking of dogs. Her heart leaped with hope. These sounds meant she was approaching the edge of the forest and the return of human civilization. Soon, the trees began to thin out even more, and Luna could see buildings in the distance. But as she emerged from the forest, she realized that her journey was far from over. She found herself on the outskirts of a town that was much larger and busier than her quiet suburban neighborhood. The streets were filled with cars, trucks, and buses, all moving much faster than the occasional vehicle she was used to seeing near her home. The noise was overwhelming. Car horns honked constantly, construction workers operated loud machinery, and people seemed to be everywhere. Walking quickly along the sidewalks, talking loudly on their phones, and generally creating a chaos of sound and movement that made Luna's sensitive ears ring. Luna crouched beside a large garbage dumpster, trying to gather her courage. She needed to cross this busy town to continue her journey home, but everything about it seemed dangerous and hostile. The vehicles were massive and fast-moving. The people looked like they were always in a hurry and might not notice a small cat, and the sheer noise and confusion made it hard for her to think clearly. As she hesitated, wondering how to proceed, Luna caught a wonderful smell drifting on the breeze, the aroma of fresh bread and pastries. Following her nose, she discovered that the dumpster was behind a small bakery. The back door of the shop was propped open, probably to let out some of the heat from the ovens. And through it, Luna could see a kindly-looking elderly woman kneading dough at a large wooden table. The woman looked up and noticed Luna peering through the doorway. Instead of shooing her away, as Luna had expected, the woman smiled warmly. "Well, hello there, little one," she said in a gentle voice. "You look tired and hungry. Are you lost?" Luna meowed softly in response, and the woman's expression grew concerned. "You're not from around here, are you? I know most of the neighborhood cats, and I've never seen you before." She wiped her flour-covered hands on her apron and approached Luna slowly, being careful not to frighten her. "My name is Mrs. Chen," the woman continued, crouching down to Luna's level. "I've been running this bakery for 30 years, and I've helped quite a few lost animals find their way home. Would you like some milk and a little something to eat? You look like you've been traveling for a while." Luna was indeed hungry and thirsty. She hadn't eaten anything since her morning breakfast in Emily's kitchen, which now seemed like a lifetime ago. She followed Mrs. Chen into the warm, fragrant bakery, where the elderly woman set out a small bowl of milk and some pieces of plain bread that would be safe for a cat to eat. As Luna ate gratefully, Mrs. Chen studied her carefully. "You're definitely a house cat," she observed. "Your fur is too clean and well-groomed for a stray, and you have that well-fed look that comes from regular meals and lots of love. Someone is probably very worried about you right now." Luna wished she could explain her situation to this kind woman, but all she could do was meow and purr to show her gratitude. Mrs. Chen seemed to understand anyway. "I can't keep you here," Mrs. Chen said gently. "My lease doesn't allow pets, and besides, you clearly belong with a family somewhere. But I can give you some advice about getting through the city safely, and you're welcome to rest here for a little while before continuing your journey." Mrs. Chen explained that the safest way to travel through the busy streets was to stay close to the buildings, where there were fewer vehicles and more places to duck into if danger appeared. She warned Luna about the subway grates that could trap small paws and pointed out which types of businesses, like pet stores and veterinary clinics, might be safe places to seek help if needed. Most importantly, Mrs. Chen said, avoid the main roads during rush hour. That's when traffic is heaviest and drivers are most distracted. If you can wait until evening, the streets will be much safer. Luna was grateful for the advice, but she was anxious to continue her journey. Every minute she spent away from home was another minute that Emily would be worrying. After resting for about an hour in the cool bakery, she decided it was time to move on. Mrs. Chen packed a small amount of bread in a clean napkin for Luna to take with her. "I hope you find your way home safely, little one," she said, gently scratching behind Luna's ears. "Remember to be smart and careful out there." Luna left the bakery feeling refreshed and more confident. Mrs. Chen's kindness had reminded her that there were good people in the world who were willing to help, even when they didn't know her. This gave her hope that she would encounter more helpful souls on her journey. As she made her way through the city streets, following Mrs. Chen's advice to stay close to the buildings, Luna began to notice that she wasn't the only cat in the area. Unlike the well-groomed house cats from her neighborhood, these were clearly street cats, leaner, more cautious, with the alert expressions of animals who had learned to fend for themselves. Luna was trying to navigate around a particularly busy intersection when she heard a voice call out to her from a nearby alley. "Hey, house cat, you're going to get yourself killed walking around out there like that." Luna turned to see 3 cats watching her from the shadows of the alley. They were all obviously street cats. A large orange tabby with a missing tip on one ear, a small black cat with bright yellow eyes, and a calico with fur that looked like it had seen many battles. The black cat stepped forward. "Name Shadow," she said. "These are my friends, Rusty and Patches. We've been watching you stumble around out there for the past 10 minutes, and it's painful to see. You're going to end up as roadkill if you keep walking around like you own the place." Luna felt a bit defensive. "I'm just trying to get home," she said. "I know I'm not used to city streets, but I'm learning." Rusty, the large orange tabby, laughed, not unkindly, but with genuine amusement. "Learning," she says. "Kid, you're about as subtle as a dog in a fish market. Come here, let us show you how it's really done." Despite her initial wariness, Luna found herself warming to these street-smart cats. They clearly knew how to survive in the urban environment, and their offer to help seemed genuine. Over the next hour, they taught her invaluable lessons about city life. Shadow showed her how to time the traffic lights to cross streets safely, explaining that she should watch the pedestrian signals and cross with groups of people whenever possible. "Drivers expect to see people in crosswalks," Shadow explained. "They're not looking for small gray cats darting between cars." Patches taught her how to identify safe hiding spots throughout the city, areas under store awnings where she could take shelter from rain or aggressive dogs, gaps between buildings that provided quick escape routes, and places where kind humans often left food for stray animals. Rusty shared his knowledge of the city's geography, helping Luna understand which direction would take her toward the suburban areas. "You want to head northeast," he said, pointing with his paw toward a part of the city where the buildings seemed smaller and less densely packed. That's where the city starts to thin out into neighborhoods with houses and yards. "But here's the thing," Shadow added seriously. "Between here and there, you're going to have to cross the river. That's not going to be easy for a house cat who's probably never been swimming in her life." Luna's heart sank. She hadn't even thought about geographic obstacles like rivers. "How do other cats get across?" she asked. "Most don't," Patches said bluntly. "The bridges are all busy with traffic, and the riverbanks are steep and muddy. But there are a few spots where it might be possible if you're brave enough and smart enough." The three street cats looked at each other, seeming to have a silent conversation. Finally, Rusty spoke up. "Tell you what, house cat, you seem determined to get home, and we respect that. We'll take you as far as the river and show you the best place to attempt a crossing. After that, you're on your own." Luna was touched by their willingness to help. "Why would you do that for me?" she asked. "You don't even know me." Shadow's expression softened slightly. "Because we've all been lost before," she said quietly, "and because sometimes, when you help others, the world becomes a little bit kinder for everyone." The journey through the city with her new guides was both educational and nerve-wracking. The three street cats moved through the urban landscape like shadows, using routes that Luna never would have discovered on her own. They led her through a network of alleys, under bridges, and along paths that seemed to exist in the spaces between the official city. As they traveled, Luna learned more about her guides' lives. Shadow had been born on the streets and had never known a human home, but she spoke wistfully of watching families through windows and wondering what it would be like to have a warm bed and regular meals. Rusty had once been a house cat like Luna, but had been abandoned when his family moved away, and had spent the last 3 years learning to survive on his own. Patches had escaped from an animal shelter as a kitten and had been living independently ever since. Their stories made Luna appreciate how lucky she was to have Emily and strengthened her determination to get back home. She also began to understand that these street cats, despite their rough exterior, had developed a strong sense of community and mutual support that helped them survive in a hostile environment. As the afternoon wore on, the sounds of the city gradually began to change. The constant honking of car horns gave way to the more peaceful sounds of residential neighborhoods, children playing in yards, lawnmowers running, and the occasional dog barking. The buildings became smaller and more spread out, with trees and patches of grass becoming more common. Finally, they reached the river. Luna stared at the wide expanse of water stretching before them, feeling daunted by the challenge ahead. The river was much larger than she had expected, at least 50 feet across, with a current that looked strong enough to sweep away a small cat. "There," Rusty said, pointing to a spot about 100 yards downstream where a fallen tree stretched partway across the water. "That's your best bet. The tree will get you about halfway across, and then you'll have to swim the rest of the way." Luna studied the fallen tree. Its trunk was thick enough to walk on, but it looked slippery and unstable. And even if she could make it to the end of the tree, the remaining distance to the far shore still looked impossibly far for her to swim. "I don't think I can do it," Luna admitted, feeling defeated. "I've never swum in water deeper than Emily's bathtub." "Hey," called a deep voice from nearby. Did someone say they need help crossing the river? All four cats turned to see a large golden retriever approaching them along the riverbank. Luna's first instinct was to run. Dogs had always been natural enemies in her mind. But something about this particular dog's friendly demeanor made her pause. "Name's Max," the dog said cheerfully. "I heard you folks talking about crossing the river. That's quite a challenge for cats, I imagine." Shadow and her friends immediately went into defensive postures, their backs arched and fur standing on end. But Max seemed completely non-threatening, even sitting down to make himself appear less intimidating. "Relax," Max said with what could only be described as a dog grin. "I'm not interested in chasing cats today. I heard this little one needs to get across the river, and it happens that I'm a pretty good swimmer. I'd be happy to help." Luna looked back and forth between the suspicious street cats and the friendly dog, trying to decide what to do. Everything she had been taught told her not to trust a dog, but Max seemed genuinely willing to help, and she was running out of options. "Why would you help a cat?" Luna asked cautiously. Max tilted his head thoughtfully. "Well, I live with two cats at home, Whiskers and Mittens, and they've taught me that cats and dogs don't have to be enemies. Plus, I can see you're trying to get home to someone who loves you. I know what that's like." After a moment's hesitation, Luna made her decision. "Okay," she said. "I'll trust you. But how exactly are you going to help me across?" Max explained his plan. He would swim across the river with Luna riding on his back, holding on carefully to his collar. It wasn't without risk. If Luna lost her grip, she could be swept away by the current. But it was probably safer than trying to navigate the fallen tree and then swim the remaining distance alone. Shadow, Rusty, and Patches watched nervously as Luna approached Max. "You sure about this, house cat?" Shadow asked. "Once you're in that water with him, there's no going back." Luna nodded, though her heart was racing with fear. "It's my best chance," she said. "And I have to trust that not all dogs are enemies." Max lowered himself into the shallow water at the river's edge, allowing Luna to climb carefully onto his back. His fur was thick and provided good grip, and his collar gave her something solid to hold onto with her claws. "Hold on tight," Max instructed. "The current is stronger in the middle, so we'll have to work against it. Whatever you do, don't panic and don't let go." The water was shockingly cold as Max waded deeper into the river. Luna had never been in water over her head before, and the sensation of the current pulling at Max's legs was terrifying. As they moved into deeper water, Max began to swim with strong, confident strokes, but Luna could feel the powerful current trying to push them downstream. Halfway across, a piece of debris floating down the river bumped into them, causing Max to stumble slightly in the water. Luna's claws slipped on his wet collar, and for a terrifying moment, she thought she was going to fall into the churning water. But she managed to regain her grip, and Max quickly steadied himself. "Almost there," Max panted, his breathing labored from fighting the current. Just a little further. The final stretch seemed to take forever. But finally, Luna felt Max's paws touch the bottom on the far side of the river. He waded into the shallow water and lowered himself so Luna could climb off onto dry land. Luna's legs were shaking so badly she could barely stand, but she was incredibly relieved to be safely across. "Thank you," she said to Max, meaning it more deeply than she had ever meant anything in her life. "I could never have made it without you." Max shook the water from his coat, sending droplets flying everywhere. "Happy to help," he said simply. "I hope you make it home safely." Luna turned to wave goodbye to Shadow, Rusty, and Patches, who were still visible on the far shore. They had given her invaluable knowledge and guidance, and she would never forget their kindness. Shadow called across the water, "Remember what we taught you, house cat, and give your human an extra purr from us." Now alone again, Luna looked around to get her bearings. The landscape on this side of the river was definitely more suburban, with scattered houses visible through the trees and the comforting sight of well-maintained roads and sidewalks. But she still didn't recognize anything specific, which meant she still had quite a distance to travel. As Luna began walking along a quiet suburban street, the sky started to darken with storm clouds. She could hear the distant rumble of thunder, and the air had that electric feeling that often preceded a heavy rain. Luna had always been safe and warm inside during storms, and the thought of being caught in one while still lost made her very anxious. The first drops of rain began to fall just as Luna spotted what looked like an abandoned house set back from the road. Several windows were broken, and the yard was overgrown with weeds. But the roof appeared to be mostly intact. As the rainfall quickly intensified, Luna ran toward the house, hoping to find shelter inside. She found a gap in the foundation where she could squeeze into what had once been the basement. It was dark and musty inside, but it was dry, and there were no obvious signs of dangerous animals. Luna found a relatively clean corner where she could wait out the storm. As the thunder grew louder and lightning began flashing outside, Luna heard a small, distressed sound coming from somewhere else in the basement. Following the sound, she discovered a young robin that had apparently been blown into the house by the wind. The bird had an injured wing and was unable to fly. Luna's first instinct was to ignore the bird. She had her own problems to worry about, and besides, cats and birds were natural enemies. But as she watched the small creature struggling to right itself, she found herself thinking about all the help she had received on her journey. Oscar had helped her learn forest survival. Mrs. Chen had given her food and rest. The street cats had taught her about city life, and Max had carried her across the river. Perhaps it was time for her to help someone else. Luna approached the bird slowly, being careful not to appear threatening. "Are you hurt?" she asked softly. The robin looked up at her with frightened eyes. "Please don't eat me," it chirped weakly. "I know you're a cat, but I'm already injured. Can't you just leave me alone?" "I'm not going to hurt you," Luna said gently. "I want to help. What happened to your wing?" The bird explained that it had been caught in a sudden gust of wind while trying to find shelter from the approaching storm. It had been blown against a tree branch and felt something pop in its wing. Now it couldn't fly, and with the storm raging outside, it was trapped in the basement. Luna remembered some of the things Emily had taught her about caring for injured animals. Emily had once nursed an injured squirrel back to health, and Luna had watched the entire process. Using what she remembered, Luna helped the robin move to a more comfortable spot and used her own body heat to help keep the small bird warm. Throughout the long, stormy night, Luna stayed with the injured robin, bringing it drops of water that had leaked through the basement ceiling and talking to it to help keep its spirits up. She told the bird about her own journey and her determination to get back to Emily. "You're very brave," the robin said as the storm began to subside near dawn. "Most cats would have eaten me without a second thought. I'm learning that being brave sometimes means doing the unexpected thing," Luna replied. "Besides, we're both just trying to survive and get home safely." As the sun began to rise, the robin's family arrived, having spent the entire night searching for their missing member. Luna watched from a safe distance as the robin's parents and siblings examined the injured bird and determined that the wing, while painful, wasn't broken, just badly bruised. Before the robin family prepared to leave, the father bird approached Luna. "We heard what you did for our child," he said formally. "A cat helping a bird is something we never expected to see. You have our gratitude, and if there's anything we can do to repay your kindness, you have only to ask." Luna considered this offer. "I'm trying to get home," she said. "I live with a human named Emily in a house with a big garden full of flowers. Do you know which direction I should go?" The robin family looked at each other and began chattering rapidly in their bird language. Finally, the father spoke again. "We know the area you describe. It's about 5 miles northeast of here, past the big highway and through the new housing development. The journey would take you most of the day on foot," the mother bird added. "But there's a problem. The highway is very dangerous for ground animals to cross. The cars move very fast, and there are few safe places to get across." Luna's heart sank. Another major obstacle, and this one sounded even more dangerous than the river had been. But the father bird wasn't finished. "However, we know of an old drainage tunnel that runs under the highway. It was built years ago to prevent flooding, and it connects both sides safely. We can show you where to find it." One of the young robins, apparently the one Luna had helped during the night, spoke up. "I want to guide her there myself. She saved my life. It's the least I can do." Despite protests from its parents about flying with an injured wing, the young robin insisted on personally showing Luna the way to the tunnel entrance. The bird couldn't fly very far or very fast, but it could flutter short distances and perch on convenient spots to point Luna in the right direction. The journey to the highway took several hours, during which Luna and the robin, who introduced himself as Pip, became genuine friends. Pip told Luna about life as a bird, describing the freedom of flight and the bird's eye view of the world that Luna could never experience. In return, Luna described the comfort and security of living with a loving human, something that Pip found fascinating. "Do you think," Pip asked as they rested under a large elm tree, "that your Emily would be interested in having a bird friend too? Not as a pet, but as a companion." Luna considered this. "Emily loves all animals," she said. "I think she would be delighted to have a bird visit the garden regularly. You'd be welcome there anytime." When they finally reached the highway, Luna was amazed by the volume and speed of the traffic. Cars, trucks, and motorcycles roared past in an endless stream, creating a wall of noise and motion that seemed impossible to penetrate safely. The very idea of trying to cross this river of vehicles made Luna's fur stand on end. But Pip led her to a small concrete structure, nearly hidden by overgrown bushes, the entrance to the drainage tunnel the Robin family had described. The tunnel was dark and somewhat intimidating, but it was definitely preferable to trying to cross the highway above. "This tunnel runs straight under the highway," Pip explained. "It's about a quarter-mile long, and it comes out on the other side near a small park. From there, you should be able to see the housing development where your home is located." Luna thanked Pip profusely for his help. The young bird had pushed himself to guide her here despite his injury, and she would never forget his kindness and courage. "Will you be able to get home safely?" Luna asked, concerned about leaving Pip alone when he was still hurt. "My family is waiting for me at the elm tree," Pip assured her. "They'll help me get back to our nest. You focus on getting home to Emily. I'm sure she's very worried about you by now." The tunnel was indeed dark and somewhat frightening, but Luna found that her night vision, enhanced by her day in the forest, served her well. The tunnel was straight and wide enough that she never felt claustrophobic, and the steady sound of traffic overhead reminded her that she was making progress toward the other side. About halfway through the tunnel, Luna encountered her biggest challenge yet. The recent storm had caused some flooding, and a section of the tunnel was filled with water about 6 inches deep. The water was moving slowly, which meant it wasn't dangerous, but Luna would have to wade through it to continue. Drawing on the courage she had developed during her river crossing with Max, Luna entered the water carefully. It was cold and muddy, and she hated the feeling of it soaking into her fur. But she persevered, step by step, until she reached dry ground on the other side. Finally, after what felt like hours, but was probably only about 20 minutes, Luna saw daylight ahead. She emerged from the tunnel into a small park, just as Pip had described. And there, beyond the park, she could see a housing development that looked wonderfully familiar. Her heart racing with excitement, Luna ran toward the development. As she got closer, she began to recognize specific landmarks: the red mailbox shaped like a barn, the house with the bright blue shutters, the little bridge over the decorative stream that ran through the neighborhood. She was almost home, but as Luna reached the street where Emily's house should be, she encountered one final obstacle. Construction crews had been working on the road, and a large section had been torn up and replaced with fresh asphalt. The familiar landmarks were obscured by construction equipment, and everything looked different from what Luna remembered. For a moment, panic set in again. She had come so far, overcome so many challenges, and now she might be lost again, just a few blocks from home. But then Luna remembered Oscar's advice about trusting her instincts. She closed her eyes and relied on her sense of smell and her memory of the neighborhood's layout. Gradually, the familiar sense reached her nose. The distinctive smell of Emily's favorite roses, the aroma of the coffee shop on the corner, and most importantly, the comforting scent of home that was impossible to mistake for anything else. Following her nose and her heart, Luna made her way through the construction zone and down the street toward Emily's house. As she rounded the final corner, she saw the most beautiful sight in the world. Emily's small blue house, with its white picket fence and colorful garden. And there, sitting on the front porch with tears streaming down her face, was Emily herself. She was holding one of Luna's favorite toys and staring down the street as if willing Luna to appear. When Emily spotted the small gray figure running toward the house, she couldn't believe her eyes at first. But as Luna came closer, meowing with joy and relief, Emily's face transformed with happiness. "Luna!" Emily cried, running to meet her beloved cat. "Oh, Luna, I was so worried about you. I've been looking everywhere, calling animal shelters, putting up posters around the neighborhood. Where have you been?" Luna couldn't explain her incredible journey in words that Emily would understand, but she purred louder than she ever had in her life as Emily scooped her up and held her close. She was dirty, tired, and still damp from her passage through the tunnel. But she was home, and that was all that mattered. Emily carried Luna inside and immediately began fussing over her, checking for injuries and preparing a warm meal. As Luna ate the familiar food from her favorite bowl, she reflected on everything that had happened since she had followed that mysterious butterfly into the forest. She had learned that the world was much larger and more complex than she had ever imagined. She had discovered that she was braver and more capable than she had known. Most importantly, she had learned that kindness existed everywhere. In an old forest cat who shared his wisdom, in a baker who offered shelter, in street cats who taught survival skills, in a dog who risked his own safety to help, and in a young bird who guided her home despite his injury. But perhaps the greatest lesson of all was that while adventure and exploration were exciting, there was no place in the world better than home, especially when home meant being with someone who loved you unconditionally. That night, as Luna curled up in her favorite spot on Emily's bed, she dreamed not of mysterious butterflies or dangerous journeys, but of the peaceful garden outside the window and the gentle sound of Emily's breathing beside her. She was home, she was safe, and she was loved. And though she would always remember her great adventure, Luna was perfectly content to spend the rest of her days as a house cat, exploring the world through the safety of her garden, while Emily worked nearby, always close enough to provide love, food, and the security of home. The butterfly that had started her journey was never seen again. But Luna sometimes wondered if it had been real at all, or if it had been something else entirely. A lesson in disguise, perhaps, about the importance of both adventure and home, of courage and caution, of independence and love. Whatever the truth, Luna's journey had transformed her from a sheltered house cat into a wise and experienced traveler who understood that the greatest adventures always lead back to the people we love most.